Good morning. I've got 10 o'clock on my computer, so we're going to go ahead and get things going with this morning's TIMS webinar. I'm Victoria Beal with the Ohio LTAP Center, and we have our presenter, Stephen Hale, who will be taking you through the TIMS system this morning. We are using a new technology, so hopefully we will not encounter any hiccups. If we do, just hang in there, and we'll get things right back on track. There is a chat pod that's available on the left-hand side of your screen. Please feel free to put questions in the chat pod throughout the presentation, and I will read those off to Stephen. Also, we'll unmute everybody at the end if you do have a phone connection, so you can ask questions as well if you'd like. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Stephen. And one last thing, we are attempting to record this webinar, so if it's successful, hopefully we'll be able to send a link out to everybody after the webinar, but please don't let that dampen your enthusiasm for asking questions, because if you have that question, I'm certain that someone else has that same question or will in the future, so we might as well get it out there and get an answer for everybody. Stephen, are you ready?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Awesome. Thanks, Victoria.
Thanks.
All right. So like Victoria said, this is a new technology that we're testing out today, this webinar software. So if there are any issues, feel free to put those in the chat pod, and we'll try to sort those out. So my name is Steve Hale. I am with ODOT's Office of Tech Services, and I am on the GIS team. So today in this webinar, we're going to walk through the TIMS application. I want to give just a high-level introduction to the TIMS app, what kind of data we have, what kind of tools are available here, and really give you just an overview of the application as a whole. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to type those into the chat bar. Also, I will show you how to get in contact with us after this. So the TIMS application is ODOT's Transportation Information Mapping System. And the idea behind TIMS is to organize and centralize a lot of ODOT's transportation-related data into one application. What you see here is, hopefully everybody can see. Oh, Victoria says the audio quality is not the best. I'm not sure what to do about that. Can everybody?
You know, you're a little bit crackly, but you're coming through. So let's just keep going, and I'll make sure that the powers that be know that we're having that issue with this system.
Okay, sorry about that, Zach. Well, hopefully you guys, it gets a little better. So the TIMS application, the best way to get there is to type in this URL up at the top of my screen here. There are a couple other ways that you can get there as well. So from the ODOT homepage, if you scroll down on the left-hand side, there is a link to TIMS. And also another good way to get there is just to use Google. You can type in ODOT TIMS, and it should be one of the top searches there. But if you start using the application and you decide that you like it, you want to use it more often, I would recommend just bookmarking it, because it is kind of a long URL there. So this is the TIMS homepage. There are a few buttons here that will navigate you throughout the site. Before we get into those, though, there are a couple links down at the bottom that might be helpful as well. So the first link is this help link. This will open up a PDF document. So everything that we talk about today, all the functionalities and the tools within the TIMS app are all outlined here in this help document. The screenshots are a little bit out of date in this help document, but the overall functionality should still be the same. We are working to update this, and hopefully within the next few weeks we'll have an updated user manual for you. Additionally, there is a contact button. So if you ever have any questions, comments, concerns, and you don't know who to contact, you can use this contact link down here, and you can send an email directly to us. We usually try to respond as quickly as possible. Usually within an hour or two, we'll have a response for you. If we don't know the answer to your question, we might forward that along to somebody else. You'll also notice that as I navigate throughout the site, there are a few buttons up here at the top. these are the same as the buttons on the home page, and will take you to each one of those individual sites within the TIMS app. There is also a TIMS logo in the upper left-hand side that'll take you back to the home page. All right, so let's just go ahead and jump in. I'm going to start with the project search page here. So the project search page is where we organize and distribute all of our project data here at ODOT. So at ODOT, we have an application called the LTAP. It's a database that houses all of our statewide project information. So the TIMS application actually pulls from that LS database on a nightly basis, and we actually show everything that has committed federal funding here in the TIMS app. So this means that it's not necessarily only active projects, but we do have some project history. I believe it goes back to 2000 or 2003. And then we have anything that is planned out in the future. As long as it has those committed federal funding, we will pull it into the TIMS database. So right away, you'll notice a couple things here on the project search page. There are some filters up top that it will allow you to drill down into the entire database. And then there's a results table down below. So the results table is kind of a theme that will repeat itself throughout the application. I'm going to go ahead and change the number of results I see to just 5 here because it'll perform a little better for this webinar. But you'll notice that down in the results table, I'm showing 55,000 entries. This is everything that we have in our TIMS database for projects. If you come in here and you want to start drilling down into the data, you can start to apply some filters up here. You can filter by district or county. As you build these filters, though, you'll see, so if I apply a District 6 filter, you'll see that now I've jumped to just 4,900 records from the 55,000. So this table will react dynamically as I start to build my filters. So next I can type in a county. In all of these search drop-down boxes, you can start to type your text, and it'll return you all of the acceptable values that meet that text that you've already typed. So now if I apply a county as well, you'll see that the table is further limited to just those records. You can also add a primary work category. So if there's a certain type of activity that you're interested in looking up, you can add that there. And you can add a fiscal year filter or a calendar year filter. So the fiscal year goes from July to June, and the calendar year is January to December. So once you apply those filters, say you find a record that you're interested in, to get more information about that record, you can click on the magnifying glass on the left-hand side. That View Details button will take you to our project information page and give you more details about that project location. So we have information about where the project is occurring, what type of project is it, what was the work done there, was it performed to the roadway or perhaps a bridge? What are some of the dates and numbers tied to that? So when did this project occur, how much was it estimated to cost, and where did those funds come from? If the project location that I selected happened to be a bridge, you would get a little bit of bridge information down here. Sometime in the next few months, we will have culvert information as well. So if you click on a project that is associated with a culvert, you will see a new portion here related to those culverts. And then down at the bottom, we have a few links that might be helpful to the actual project plans. So you can click on the hyperlinks, and this will take you to the Office of Contracts page where they house all of the project plan PDFs. And if you click over here on the right-hand side, you can open up those project plans and navigate through them in this PDF reader. I believe you can also just download them directly from that page as well. Excuse me. All right, and so you got all the information about the project location that you're interested in. Maybe you want to view it on a map, see exactly where the project is occurring. you can click this View and Map button up at the top. That'll take you to the Create a Map page and highlight that section of road or that bridge on the map. So I'm going to navigate back. We'll talk a little bit more about Create a Map in a second. There's another link up at the top. If you want more information about this project that we don't necessarily have in our TIMS application, you can click this View and Ellis button. This takes you to a public-facing Ellis portal that gives you all the information that they serve out to the public here. So you can get more information about the costs or about the estimates, the dates, the schedule data. You can get all that information here in the Ellis portal. I'm going to close out of that. And then if I navigate back, just click my back button, it takes me back to the project search page. You'll notice that my filter persists. This is the filter that I applied before I viewed more information about that project. The TIMS application will remember the last filter that you had applied to the project search page. For better or worse, if you are working in a consistent area or district or county, it will remember the last search that you put in. To remove that, you can just click the reset buttons, and that will remove that from your history, so it'll give you a fresh slate there. Another thing you might notice is we have a project ID tied to each one of our projects. We might have multiple records tied to a single project, and what that means is we just have multiple work locations for that project. So for instance, this particular project has a few different work locations tied to it. If you wanted to see all of those work locations on the map at the same time, you can simply highlight those records just by clicking on them, and then you can click the View and Map button directly from the search page. This will take you back to the Create a Map page and highlight all of those records. So it looks like we have a road segment here as well as a couple bridges that are tied to that project. Alternatively, if you just want to download that data, you found the project ID that you're looking for, and you just want to download the data, you can click on these records and click Export Data. You can export to Excel, KMZ, a Shapefile, or a geodatabase from here. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about on this page here is this search bar. So you can dynamically search this table. So say I found the county and the district that I was looking for, but I wanted to filter this a little more maybe by the route number. I could type in a route number, let's say 270. And it'll filter this table dynamically based off of that text that I inputted. So now I'm seeing all of the projects in Franklin County that are on Interstate 270. So that's the project search page in a nutshell. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to me after this webinar, but in order to keep things on pace, I'm going to jump to the Create a Map page. So one last thing about the project search, you'll notice that as I browse through the application, in the upper right-hand corner there's a search by PID. If you come to TIMS and you already know the project ID that you're looking for, you can just type that in down here and click search, and that'll take you back here and it'll apply that filter automatically to point you directly to that project ID. Alright, so I'm going to jump to Create a Map now. So Create a Map is kind of the meat and potatoes of the TIMS app. So this is where you are going to come to interact with all the data that we have published in TIMS, as well as enable and use all the tools that we have built into the application. So there are a couple things that you'll notice right when you open up Create a Map. We obviously have this big, large map that is full screen now. If you've used the TIMS application prior to, I want to say, I think it was May of last year, the look and feel of the app was a little different. You had to scroll up and down a lot. What we've done is we've made this full screen now, so it's a little easier to use and you can see all the layers and the tools without having to move away from the map. So the map interface works a lot like you're used to with a Google Maps or something like that. You can click on the map and drag it around. You can use your mouse wheel to zoom in and out. Or you could use the plus and the minus on the left-hand side to zoom in and out at set intervals. The data that you're seeing on the map right now is what we refer to as a base map. So we have a few different base maps that you can use to interact with the rest of the layers that you're going to turn on. In the upper right-hand corner, there is a Set Base Map tool. So what we're viewing right now is the ODOT base map. This is made using data that ODOT publishes. So you can be assured that the data in this map is what ODOT actually maintains and publishes. We do have a few other base maps that you can use, and it's completely up to you, whatever your preference is. Everything above this line here, it comes from an external source. We do have some imagery options down here available. So if you wanted to view satellite imagery, you can click the OSIP Best Available and view high resolution aerial photography. But just keep in mind that the TIMS application, next time you come into TIMS, it will remember what base map you use. So if you have another base map turned on, the next time you come into the application, it will go directly to that base map. So I'm going to go back to ODOT. All right, the other portions here, so this is a results table down below. Each one of these bars on the left-hand side and down below, you can click and drag and make as large or as small as you'd like. You can also click that blue button and minimize it completely. So if you want more real estate for your map, you can minimize those. The left-hand side is where you're going to come to interact with all the data and the toolbars. Right away when you open up Create a Map, it defaults to this first tool called Set Visible Layers. This is where you're going to come to turn the data on and off within Create a Map. So the layers are organized in what we call layer groupings. We have a few different layer groupings here, as you can see. We have an asset layer grouping. This is where we house a lot of our transportation related assets. Most of this data here comes from within ODOT. So you can turn on information like bridge inventory, culvert data, pavement condition ratings. And to turn on a layer, let me zoom out just a sec. To turn on a layer, you just click on the actual layer name, and once it's highlighted green, that layer is now enabled. So some of these layers in here within TIMS might not show up right away because we have a spatial filter applied to them. It doesn't make much sense to see all of the data. Yep.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just got a message from Sean at Omega that he's not hearing any audio. I wondered if anyone else is having this issue too.
Okay, you want to pause for a second and sort that out?
I thought I'd ask and see if someone else could give us a response and let us know if they can hear or not.
Okay.
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 I do have everybody muted as far as the... Okay, people are saying that they can hear the audio other than Sean, so we'll just keep going. Sean, on your end, just make sure that your computer audio isn't muted, that your speakers aren't muted.
I don't think he'll be able to hear you.
Or try a different browser.
You might have to type
I'm having issues typing instant messages in, so maybe if someone else could type that into the chat pod for me real quick. So I would appreciate that. So, great. It seems like there's some messages coming through, people recommending to call in too. So, all right. Okay. Stephen, whenever you want to go ahead and keep going. Thank you, everybody, for helping out, put messages in the chat pod
please
for
bear
me.
with us. This is a new webinar software that we're using.
Yep.
All right, so where was I?
Thanks.
Yep. So once you enable the layers within TIMS, some of them might not turn on right away. In order to view the data, for those layers. Once you start to zoom in a little bit and get past that initial filter, the data will start to appear. Not every layer within TIMS is like that, but as you zoom in a little further, you might see labels appear for certain layers within TIMS too. Now, if you can turn on one or many different layers at a time. So I can turn on multiple layers. And if you have data that's symbolized different, so you can see that the PCR data here is symbolized using different colors. If you click on the Legend tab in your Layers tools up here, this will take you to the legend and show you how the data is symbolized for that particular layer. So if you have multiple different layers turned on in your map, you can come here to the legend and see exactly what is going on with that layer. So let me turn some of these off again. The next group of layers here is boundaries. So if you wanted to turn on some boundary information to get more information out of this data, you can turn on data like townships, cities and villages, county boundaries, ODOT districts. We do have some school district information here as well, and some political boundaries. It might help you get more value out of the data that you're looking at. We have a grouping called environmental data. So we work closely with the Office of Environmental here at ODOT. A lot of this data is related to environmental compliancy. So if there's a project being scheduled or something like that, they might come in here and turn on some of these layers and see what type of environmental factors are related to the roadway there.
Quick question for you from the chat pod. Does data have to be downloaded, or are there service layers available as well?
So I'm assuming you might be referring to REST services, Ben. We can discuss after the webinar how you can access our REST URLs, but all the data is publicly available through a REST endpoint. And we'll follow up after this and talk about that if you'd like. If anybody else is interested in accessing our data via REST endpoints, please let us know, and we'll be happy to share that with you. All right. So project information. So this is the same data that we were querying in the project search page. However, it is just defined a little differently for a few more layers. You can view the projects all at the same time by clicking the all project points or lines. Or you can view them by fiscal year, or you can view the district work plans as well. We do have buttons for the current project, so if you click on these, it'll show you what is actively going on. And then this project history layer, this comes from a different source as the other project data, but this will show you historic projects within the state of Ohio, and I believe their records that date all the way back to the 30s. So we have quite a bit of project history in that layer. Roadway information. So one of ODOT's largest assets, obviously, is the roadway. Here under roadway information, there are quite a few layers related to the roadway. So you can look at traffic counts. That's a very popular data set here within TIMS. You can see what is going on with the roadway. What are the functional classifications of the roadway? We have a layer for NHS. Is this part of the NHS system? Scenic byways. Also, strategic transportation system. This is a 40-year plan for strategic transportation assets within the state of Ohio. So we have information like airports, bus stops, Amtrak system, water ports, Ohio rail line. You can get that information here under the STS data sets. And then safety. So this is a publicly available safety layer that we have within TIMS. Some people on the call might be interested in seeing GCAT data, crash analysis tools. This data is the same as GCAT, but we stripped out a lot of the sensitive information, and we only provide 3 years worth of data. We will discuss at the end of the webinar how to access the full GCAT data.
Other question for you. Speed zones, attribute. Does it equal speed limits?
The speed zones attribute. So there is a layer here called speed zone extensions. These are essentially changes, alterations to the typical standardized speed limits. So if, for instance, there was an exception of a speed limit in a certain location, this would track what that difference was. So it wouldn't show the speed limits on every single road if the posted speed limit is what the standard speed limit would be. However, it does show what those alterations might be. All right. So let me just enable some data here. I'll turn on the traffic AADT. So this is the annualized average daily traffic counts. Now, you can see a lot of our data sets have labels that show you a little bit of information about that data. But if you actually want to drill down into a certain feature and get more information about that data, the quickest and easiest way would be to use the Identify Features tool. So up on my toolbars, if I enable this, now I can click on the map, and it'll highlight a selected feature. So let me click in a location that might have multiple features. So if I click in a location that could potentially select multiple features, I will be able to navigate through each one of those features individually. If I select across multiple layers, like if there were a few different layers turned on, you could choose which layer you wanted to select from by clicking this drop down. And so now I can see all of the different attributes about that particular data set, about that particular feature here on the left-hand side. Some of our layers might have a hyperlink. So for instance, these traffic counts have a hyperlink to the MS2 system. You can just click on those and it'll take you to that particular application. And I use that as an example because that is a popular workflow for users to come into TIMS and grab traffic count data. And then the next way to really get more information about a particular data set would be to use the filter tools. So back on my toolbar here, there's a filter data option. If you click that drop down, it'll give you 3 different ways to filter the data. You can filter by attributes, so using the actual columns in the data set. You can filter by geography, meaning the spatial boundaries, so you can use a county, district. You can filter by graphic too, so this allows you to actually draw features on the map and filter data that falls within a certain distance from those features that you drew. So the first one, let me turn on just one more layer here to illustrate. I'll turn on PCR too. So if I do filter by attributes, the first thing when you're enabling these filter tools, the first thing that you need to do is select which layer you want to filter from. So this drop-down will show you all of the active layers that you have turned on in your map. So if I wanted to filter from the traffic data, I can select that layer, and then I can start to build my query down here. So if the first thing I want to do is, let's say I want to choose a county code. I can type the field name there, or I can just click the drop-down and see all of the field names in that data set. Now, if you are confused or you don't understand maybe what the data is that you're looking at, up at the top there is a link to the data glossary. We'll come back to the data glossary, but all of the field definitions for the data sets within TIMS will be organized here in the data glossary. So if I wanted to select a county code, I can choose the field that houses my county code, choose my operator, and then select that code. Now I could click search now and that will return everything that meets that criteria, or I can add another filter too. So you can add actually multiple filters and choose your parameters here, and or. And so if I wanted to add, compound on that query that I built, I can choose, let's do AADT total number. And then I can choose is greater than. So there are all sorts of operators here. You can choose is greater than, is between, is not between, and these are dependent on what the data type is for that particular field. Let's say 100,000. So this will return all of the records that meet the criteria county code is Franklin, and the average daily traffic total is greater than this number. So if I click search, it will spin for a second, and then it'll tell me how many features it found. So it might be hard to see depending on your monitor, but you can see here there are blue segments highlighted. That is the actual selection that I just made. I'm going to come back to my Layers tab, and you can see that I now have a new results layer here. Anytime you build a filter within TIMS, that filter is translated to a new layer. If I turn off the other two layers that I have on, you can see here is my new layer in blue, and I can turn that on and off just like any other layer. Also, whenever you build a filter in TIMS, I'm going to maximize my results layer. Welcome, Sean. Sorry about the audio issues. All right, so my results table down here. So this is the results that I just built in my filter. So you can see I have 219 entries here. I can use this results table, scroll up and down, and see all of the attributes for individual features. You can actually click on these features individually and zoom to them, and you'll see those highlighted on the map, each record. If you wanted to remove a section from your selection, you can click the X here, and that'll remove that feature from your selection as well. Also, you'll notice up by all of the field names, there is a question mark. You can click on that, and that'll show you the definition of that particular field. Now, we are constantly working to increase our usability and make better data definitions. So we're not quite there, and we know that, but we are working to make those better definitions. Now, if I wanted to now download this data, I built this filter, and I have no more need to view it in TIMS, and I just want to export it to, say, Excel or a GIS system of my own. You can come over here on the right-hand side and click the Export Data. So you can build a filter, select the data that you're interested in, and then you can export it to Excel, a KMZ, Shapefile, or a geodatabase. You can just choose what type you want to export it to, and then once that green download button is enabled, you click download, and it should download to wherever your browser points it to. And I just realized that I am showing one program, so you can't see the download that I just created. But I can assure you that it popped up in Excel. All right, so also if you wanted to build a filter here and you populated the results table, we have another tool over here called Show Hide Columns. So this allows you to actually turn off the columns that you're not interested in and see just the information that you care about. So you'll notice that as I turn these columns on and off, I now only see the ones that I left enabled. And you can also you can click on any one of the field names to sort ascending or descending as well. So that is how you interact with the results table down below. I'm going to go ahead and build the next type of filter. Let me turn on a different data set though. I'm going to turn on my bridges. So now I want to filter by geography. So what this does is you can select the layer that you want to filter from, and then you can choose a boundary. It has to be a county boundary, an MPO, a district, or an urban area. We are looking into adding some more boundary types, but this is all we have available at this point. So once you choose the type of boundary, you can select the name of that boundary, and then you can click search, and this might actually be too much data to return. I don't know how many bridges are in Cuyahoga, but let's see. You'll notice that when you run these filter tools, the amount of time that it takes to process the filter is a product of how much data you're actually returning. So this might take a couple minutes actually. Alright, so there it goes. So it wasn't too bad. But I found 1,350 bridges here within Cuyahoga County. Now if I come back to my Set Visible Layers tab, you'll see that I now have a new layer in my results layer. So I still have my original filter by attribute, but I also have a filter by geography. The application is not smart enough at this point to show you what your actual filter was, but hopefully sometime in the future we will be able to either make it a user input here to rename that, or to have a smart label tied to those new layers. And then the last filter tool is a filter by graphic. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit to illustrate this one. But what the filter by graphic allows you to do is actually draw points on the map, points, lines, or polygons, and then you can build a buffer around those drawings and extract all of the data that falls within that buffer. So to draw, you select the type of point, line, or polygon that you want to draw. I'll say I'll draw a line. Click the draw button, and then to draw a point, you just click on the map where you want that point to be. To draw a line, you click to start, and then every subsequent click adds a vertex to that line. To end your drawing, you just double click, and then if I wanted to build a buffer around that line, I can put in a distance, let's say 2 miles. Then I can choose my unit of measurement and click buffer. So that builds a buffer around that feature that I just drew. And now if I click the search tool, it will go out and find all of the records that fall within that boundary. And here I have 55 records that fall within that boundary. So it might be a useful tool if you're doing like a corridor analysis, or you want to see how far certain features are away from the roadway or from a project. You can draw those features and select those records from that boundary. So now if I come back to my Set Visible Layers, I just cleared it before I clicked on it. If I didn't clear it, you would see that other layer there. And then now I can toggle between attribute layers by clicking the Show Attributes, and then it'll populate back in my results table my previous filters that I built. You can also click the Remove Layer button if you are done with a filter that you've built. You can click Remove Layer, or you can zoom to a previous filter just by clicking those drop downs. Looks like I might have froze it up trying to reload all that data. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. If you don't create a buffer, can you still run the tool? Yes. Good question, Ben. You do not need to create a buffer in order to run that tool. You can draw just a line, a point, or a polygon, and it'll return everything that intersects with that particular feature that you drew. So those are the filter tools. If you have any more questions regarding filtering data, go ahead and follow up with me after this. I want to keep the webinar moving because we are about 20 minutes left. So the next tool set is the Find Locations. So this allows you to find an address or an intersection, a latitude, longitude. You can find a log point, which I'll talk about in 1 second, and an area. So address or intersection, this is very straightforward. You just click Find, type in your address there, and it drops a pin at that location. The latitude, longitude, you can type in a latitude in decimal degrees or degrees, minutes, second. Click Find. It'll drop a flag and zoom the map to that location. Or you can use the Click on Map tool. And then you can click on an area, and it'll drop a flag and show you the results here in the tool set over here. If you wanted to translate between degrees, minutes, seconds, and decimal degrees, you can click on those and it'll translate that real time. The Find Area tool, I'll come right back to the log point, just allows you to find one of those boundaries, county, MPO, district, or urban area. You can select the type, choose the name of that boundary, and then it'll highlight that boundary and zoom to it on the map. And then the last tool is the Find Log Point. I'm going to zoom back down here. So this Find Log Point tool allows you to find a route location within the state of Ohio. So here at ODOT we have a route ID system called our NLFID. This tool will also allow you to extract those IDs from our routes and find the measurement along the route using this tool. So the first thing you do is select a county. If you wanted to find a location, you can type in the county name and it'll give you all the available options. Once you choose a county, it'll show you all of the available routes within that county. We do have them organized by route type to make it a little easier for you. If I wanted to find, say, Interstate 70. Oh, looks like there is an issue with that tool. I apologize. I just tested this before we started the webinar and everything worked fine. Okay, so we have an issue with this tool. I apologize. If you want to see the functionality of this tool, I'm going to get it fixed immediately after this webinar, and we also have some documentation in that help guide, as well as previously recorded webinars. So I apologize about that. So that's the Find Location or Find Log Point tool. I swear it works 90% of the time. The next set of tools here, under my tool drop down, you have a few different options. You have a measure tool. This allows you to take a measurement. You can measure an area, a distance, or a location. First, select your unit of measurement. Click Measure, and then you can draw those shapes just like in the Filter by Graphic tool. And then to end a shape, just double-click, and then it'll return the area, distance, or location after you click on the map. If I wanted to translate between units of measurement, I can click the drop-down, and it will translate those drawings that I already drew real time. The Draw tool allows you to draw your own shapes on the map. So besides measuring, you can click the Draw and draw points, lines, polygons, and text. In order to do that, you can choose the color here using the color selector. Click Draw, and then just click on the map, and it'll draw those points on the map. Now, when you draw these points, they will also show up here in the results layer as a new layer here. Where was I? Draw. So you can actually draw your own text on the map too. Choose what you want that text to say. Click Draw. And then click on the map, and it adds almost a label. And where this comes in handy is if you wanted to print a map and add your own text or your own drawings to help supplement the map, you can add those there, and then you can use the Print tool up here to print your map. And those drawings will come through in your print. The next set of tools is a bookmark tool. So if you are coming to a certain location on the map repeatedly and you want to bookmark that, you can add a bookmark here, and then next time you come into the map, if you zoom away, you can just click zoom on that bookmark. It'll take you right back to that location. You can also use, let me turn on some layers to illustrate this next tool. You can also use, in the upper right hand corner, there's a Share Map with Your Friends tool. This works similar to the bookmark, but it creates a URL. So you can copy that URL and send it to a friend. You can email it, or you could even bookmark it. Looks like I didn't get it all. And what that does is it opens up Tim's, zooms directly to that area, and turns on all the same layers that you have enabled when you ran that tool. It does not remember any filters that you built or any custom drawings that you made on the map. It only remembers the layers that you're turned on and where you are in the map. So there is another application called ODOT PathWeb that I will not be able to demo right now because I'm only showing Google Chrome. This PathWeb will take you to the PathWeb system to show you the video logs, and it currently only works in Internet Explorer. However, to use it, you just click on PathWeb, and then you can click on a roadway, and it'll take you to the external location, the other application, and open that up, the location where you clicked. So I wish I could show you that. If you look at another webinar, you should be able to see the functionality there. And then Map Channel. So this is similar to PathWeb. You enable the Map Channel tool, click on the map, and then this opens up another application that shows you a few different map views at the location that you clicked. So you have a street view here, you have your typical Google Maps, and then you have an aerial imagery on the right-hand side. So the last set of tools here in Create a Map is this Add Data to the Map. So here under Set Visible Layers, you can view all the data that we have, ODOT has published out to TIMS, but you can also add your own data to the map. You can add a shapefile, a KMZ, KML, or if you have some linear referencing events that fall along the roadway, you can add those via a spreadsheet. You can also add lat-long coordinates, or you can geocode addresses within TIMS. So all of these four down below take a spreadsheet input, and you have to have certain fields enabled in your spreadsheet for it to actually geocode those events. The top two just take a predefined shapefile or a KMZ file. And then the last thing, up on the upper right-hand corner is the print map function that I talked about earlier. You can print a map in one of these three predefined templates. It'll spin for a second, and then it should pop up a PDF of that location. Yeah.
Question for you. Can those geocoded addresses then be exported to a shapefile?
Yes, they can. Yep. So when you add data via the Add Data to the Map tool, it will show up here in your results table, and then you can click the Export to a Shapefile tool. And then I'm not sure what happened here, but the base map did not come through. I apologize about all the issues that we're having today. But the base map should typically come through when you print your maps. All right, so I'm going to keep this moving and jump to the next page here in TIMS called Data Download. So if you want to just come to TIMS to download the data, the question was, shapefile needs to be zipped. Yes, the shapefile should be zipped. Is there a limited amount of layers that you can add to the map? No, there are not. You can add as many as you want. However, keep in mind, they will exist in your map only for that particular browser session. So when you close your browser, the next time you come into TIMS, you would have to re-upload those. We don't have the storage capacity right now to, I guess, host everybody's data. Maybe sometime in the future we'll figure out a good way to do that, but right now they only live within your browser session. So the data download page, if you want to come to TIMS just to download the data, we have all the same layers that you saw in Create a Map available here in Data Download. You can click on one or many, and then click the Export tool, and it'll export to one of those file types that we discussed before. This will give you the entire data set, and then it will be up to you to filter or query that data within whichever application you download to. Standard PDF maps. So this is a mapping engine that we've set up with a few predefined templates. Most of these templates are related to project information. However, we do have one for functional class already. We are working on defining some new, I guess, templates, new map types. These are the only 6 that we have published so far. So what you can do is you can choose the map type that you want to produce. You can choose the county, the district, the MPO, the city, or the urban area. choose what base map you want, and then we have a few different sizes that are all portrait right now. You can choose the size and click Generate Map. That'll spin for a second, and then once that is done, you can click the Download button and actually open that map up in a PDF. The next portion here is the map viewers. So each one of these map viewers is very similar to the Create a Map page. However, we have customized focused content in each one of these. So we work with different offices or divisions here within ODOT to come up with these map viewers. And the purpose of these are, let me jump into the structures viewer to illustrate. The purpose of these is instead of showing all of the layers that we have in Create a Map, we can make more focused content and actually build out different layers depending on what queries were provided to us. So here in the structures viewer, instead of viewing all of the bridges at once, you can actually view them by ownership, or you can view them by structurally deficient rating, whatever it is that we might have predefined in some of these filters. Now these map viewers, we still have capacity to build more map viewers, so if anybody out there has ideas or thoughts on some additional map viewers, let us know and we can have that discussion. All right, the data glossary. So I mentioned this briefly earlier. So the data glossary, if you have questions or concerns about what some of the field names mean within TIMS, your first stop should be the data glossary here. You can filter depending on which data set you're interested in, or you can view all of the attributes for everything here in the results table down below. You can export these. So if you wanted to filter on a certain data set, click Export. You can export all the data definitions to a spreadsheet. And then on the left-hand side, there is a question mark that gives you a little more information about each one of those data sets. Notice there is a date refreshed date. That is the last date that data was updated. And we also have an update cycle, so it'll tell you how often is this data updated. One thing that I didn't mention, a lot of the data we actually update on a nightly basis. So like our bridge information, our culvert information, that data is updated every single day. We do have some other data that might be somewhat static, like county boundaries that don't change very often, that we only update as needed. So you can get that information here on the left-hand side, and you can see when that data was last updated. All right, so I'm going to click on the TIMS page here to go back to the home page. And then the last item within TIMS is fairly new. It was implemented back this summer and went live into production, I want to say in August, is the crash data search page. So we actually have some specific webinars here at ODOT directly related to using this page. So if anybody here is interested in learning more about the GCAT page than what we talk about today, contact Victoria or the LTAP office, and we can get you in touch with that webinar or that in-person training class.
Yeah, Stephen, I'll send out a link to the one that's upcoming that
Okay.
Mike McNeil will be doing, and I will also send out a link to everybody of the one he already did. So
perfect.
if you want to get information right away. Thanks.
Perfect, Victoria. Thanks. So this GCAT page, you will be directed directly to the splash page here. If you are a current GCAT user, or if you do get a login, you can click the login button. That'll take you to the query page. There's the forgot password if you forgot your password. If you want public information, so you don't want to get a username, you just want to see what we have publicly published, you can view that here. And you can also request a username. So if you do think that you would value out of getting access to this page, you can click the new user button here. And that'll take you to the site where you can actually request the login information. So I have access, so I'm going to click the login button. And this brings me to the crash data search page. So the first thing that you're going to be asked to do is to select a year. You always need to select a year when you're querying the crash data. I'm just going to select 2018, but we do carry a rolling date all the way back 10 years. So come 2019, we will show data all the way back to 2009. You can also choose a month of the year if you're looking for a specific time or date. And then each one of these groupings here is just a different type of filter. So you can filter by crash details, what type of crash it was, what was the severity of the crash. You click on each one of those, you can choose one or many options. If you know the document number of the crash report, you can type that in here, and that'll take you directly to that one specific crash record. Some additional emphasis areas that you can choose. Driver vehicle location. So these drop downs are slightly different, but you can still select one or many. And then the location information. So I highly recommend using the location information. If I tried to query just 2018, I would probably have too much data to display in the map. So I can limit that using a location here. You can choose a county. So let's say Franklin County. And you can also choose an NLFID search. So remember, NLFID is our road ID. So if you have a certain route that you're looking for crash information on, you can define that here, and you can actually choose segments of that road. So I can click the search button, choose a county, choose a route, and then choose the actual log point, the milepost of the segment that I want to view. What is the data limit for the map, number of records? So for the crash data, that is actually defined down below. So 105,000 records. That's the limit for the crash data. I do recommend building as refined of a search as you possibly can, because the more data that you put into the map, the worse it's going to perform. Obviously, the more data, it's going to be a little slower. So if you refine that search, it'll perform better for you. So once non-crash. That's kind of a complicated question. We do limit a lot of our data sets to about 100,000. We don't have much data within Create a Map that has that many records. However, like our road inventory has over 100,000 records. So it depends on the data set, to answer your question, and how many records we need to show at one time. For the data uploads, I don't think I have an answer for you. I don't know what the limitation is if you were uploading your own shapefile. And then if I wanted to, so I built my filter here. I can click View and Map, or I can download the data directly to a spreadsheet. So I'm going to click the View and Map button. It's going to spin for a second and run that query, and then it's going to return how many records were actually returned by that query. So if that looks right to me, if I want to view that in the map, I can click OK, View and Map. That'll take you to a special map viewer specific for the crash analysis. And then once all that data loads, you will see all those crashes on the map. And now you can use all the same tools that we talked about and create a map, but we also have a special crash filter tool that allows you to draw multiple shapes. So if you built your filter and want to come in and do, say, a corridor analysis, or select multiple intersections or routes, you can do that here by drawing multiple shapes. So here you need to actually define the buffer distance first. Click Draw, and then I can draw a segment there, but I can also choose to draw a point too. So say I wanted to include that intersection for whatever reason. Now I click Search, and it's going to return all of the features that fell within either one of those boundaries. And so from here in my results table, I can export that data to a spreadsheet, KMZ, a shapefile, or a geodatabase. And then the last thing specific to this crash analysis tool would be the CAM tool download. So if you're familiar with the GCAP process, you'll know that they produce this spreadsheet that has all sorts of fancy tools and filters in it already built. You can download that here directly from the crash analysis page. And then that'll download to Excel, which unfortunately I can't show right now. So That is pretty much Tim's in a nutshell. I know it's a lot of information for just an hour webinar. I do apologize. We ran out of time very quickly. If anybody has any further questions, I think we have time to answer a couple, or you can feel free to reach out to me after this is over by using the contact button down.
I just went ahead and, well, I attempted to unmute everybody. Yep, it says a presenter unmuted the audience, so if you want to talk, you can feel free to unmute your phone line. And
Ben, I'm going to go ahead and give you my email address. I'll just type it in here so everybody can have it.
I know we're up against 11 o'clock, so some people might have other things they need to move on to. We appreciate everybody's time on this webinar, and we have attempted to record it, so hopefully that will be successful, and I'll be able to send you a link later today to the recording.
All right, Victoria, it's not letting me type right now.
Oh, dear. All right. Well, I will email out your email address to everybody then, too. I do have everybody's information
so that one might have gone through. So, Ben, go ahead and send me an email offline. If anybody else wants access to the REST endpoints, the service URLs, go ahead and send me an email, and we can have that discussion offline. But we are happy to share that with anybody who wants that data. All right?
Okay. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and end the webinar then, and I'll make sure everyone has the contact information to get with you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Bye-bye.